আমাকে দিয়ে যাও এই তো এই দেবুদা
वहां से नहीं होगा First equal followed by harmony from that side. Here from that side. After harmony will be played. One, two, three. Six position then now we and E she is not here. Then number 11 understand the sheet is member. Don't take like this, but you don't see it. Guys, don't forget. What was good?
May I request Professor S. P. Mukherjee to open the convocation and deliver the welcome address.
Bhavadhar, Director of Indian Statistical Institute, respected Professor S. Marji, distinguished Professor, Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, distinguished participants in this program. The participants are going to receive diplomas today, faculty members and other guests from the Indian Statistical Institute, and all those others who are assembled here on this auspicious occasion, on which participants in the 75th course of the International Statistical Center will receive their diplomas. As you all know, late in 1950, ISEC started offering courses to assist developing countries to train manpower in setting up, strengthening, and augmenting their national statistical systems. And that way, we have come to the completion of the 75th course. Course durations, etc., have varied. Content remains more or less the same. And we have been trying to impart training to those who are already working in some establishments, mostly in the national statistical systems of their respective countries, in Asia, Africa, sometimes from Europe as well. And I'm sure that these programs have been benefiting those countries and their respective statistical offices. This is now a program conducted under what is called ISEC, the Technical Economic Cooperation Program of the Government of India. It is widely appreciated and is developing in terms of its content, presentation, and appreciation. We have come to a very auspicious occasion on completion of the 75th course to raise the convocation to award diplomas to the participants who have successfully completed the course and completed the examinations. I now declare the convocation for the 75th ISEC course open. Thank you.
Professor S. P. Mukherjee, Chairman of the Board of Directors of the National Statistical Education Center, Professor Shanmata Bandappada, Director ISI, Professor Swatam Majid, First Distinguished Professor, Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, and Chief Guest for today, Dr. Arvind Kaur, Program Coordinator, graduating students whom we officially refer to as trainees, learned members of the faculty, distinguished guests, including those who have joined online, colleagues at ISEC, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure and proud privilege for me to present a brief report on the activities of the International Statistical Education Center, ISEC, in the year 2023-24. I should start with a brief introduction to ISEC, It was founded in 1950 at the then city of Calcutta, now called Kolkata, through the initiative of Professor P.C. Mahalanobis, based on an agreement between the International Statistical Institute, which is in the Netherlands, and the Indian Statistical Institute. At present, this center is run by the Indian Statistical Institute under the auspices of the Government of India. It is an associate institution of ISI as per regulation number 14 of the institute. It functions under a board of directors which has members from the ISI, the Ministry of Statistics and Programming Implementation, and the Ministry of External Affairs. The center aims to provide training in theoretical and applied statistics at various levels to selected participants from countries of the Middle East, the Far East, South and Southeast Asia, as well as the Commonwealth countries of Africa. The primary training program is a 10-month regular course in statistics entitled Statistical Theory and Applications, leading to a diploma. Till date, more than 1,714 trainees from approximately 85 countries have received this diploma. In addition, special courses on different topics of varying duration are also organized for international participants. Complete financial support is provided to the participants in all ISEC programs run by the Ministry of External Affairs of the Government of India, mainly under its Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program. These programs have traditionally been residential, except during the pandemic years when some online courses had been organized mainly under the ISEC initiative. The last convocation organized for successful participants of the 74th term of the diploma course was held on August 29, 2023, wherein 14 participants from 4 different countries were awarded their diploma. The 75th term of the regular course, entitled Statistical Theory and Applications, attracted 25 applicants from 16 countries. We selected 15 candidates however, one candidate could not join due to personal reasons. These 14 trainees, of whom 5 are females, are from 13 different countries. The countries represented are Burundi, Bangladesh, Botswana, Congo, Ethiopia, Fiji, Gambia, Ivory Coast, Kenya, Madagascar, Malawi, Myanmar, and Niger. All these trainees are supported by the ISEC Fellowship of the Government of India. This program started on 1st September 2023. Besides this regular course, ISEC also conducted 2 special courses during the year. The first one was a 2-week training program on sampling methodologies for conducting household surveys. It was held on October 30 to November 10, 2023. This course attracted 15 applicants from 9 countries. However, 13 applicants, of whom 7 were females, from 7 countries were selected. The countries represented in this course were Maldives, Vietnam, South Sudan, Tanzania, Jamaica, Ghana, and Thailand. The second special course which ISEC conducted was on data analytics for decision making. This course was for 3 weeks duration and held during March 4 to 22 of this year. This course attracted 63 applicants from 19 countries. However, only 15 applicants from 10, of whom 10 were females, from 10 countries were selected. In this course, the countries represented were Bhutan, Ethiopia, Kenya, Lesotho, Mauritius, Mongolia, Myanmar, Nigeria, and Uganda. The trainees were provided computer and internet facilities during their stay. They had access to the ISEC library and the central library. Faculty members of ISI participated in the teaching programs of all these 3 courses. Assistance of the officers of the Government of India was sought for teaching official statistics and the special course on sampling methodologies for conducting household surveys. It is indeed a pleasure to report that all the 14 trainees of the 75th term of the regular course on statistical theory and applications have successfully completed the program and have been recommended for the award of the statistical training diploma by the Teachers Committee. In fact, 5 of them have completed the course with distinction. The ISEC will be 75 years old in October 2024. The ISEC hopes to celebrate this occasion by organizing 2 conferences, the first one in Delhi and the second one in Calcutta. We hope to have these conferences in February and September 2025. These proposals will be discussed in the upcoming board meeting. I wish to place on record my deep sense of gratitude to Professor Amita Pal, the former member secretary who is present today, for having shouldered this responsibility for a little more than 2 years. I am grateful to all the teachers associated with this badge for their sense of dedication and duty. I shall be failing in my duty if I will not to acknowledge the support of the ISS officers. A special thanks are due to Dr. Arindam Kaur, our program coordinator, and to Mr. Dimitra, our administrative officer. Thanks are also due to my other colleagues who have been associated with the ISEC activities in various capacities. The ISEC is guided by its board of directors. I take this opportunity to thank Ms. Abhilasha Joshi of the Ministry of External Affairs for her support as a DoD member. I wish her the best in her new assignment. I welcome Mr. Viraj Singh, Additional Secretary, MEA, and Ms. Pooja Singh Mondal, Additional Secretary, MOSPI, on the board. I am grateful to Professor Shangamata Bandapadhyay, Director ISI, for her support to the ISEC activities. I am indebted to Dr. Professor S. Mukherjee for his wise counsel on all matters. A special thanks are due to Professor Shugata Mukherjee for agreeing to our request to be the chief guest and deliver the convocation address in spite of the many demands on his time. I shall have occasion to formally introduce him a little later. We look forward to his erudite address. Finally, I must place on record my deep appreciation of the support of the workers of the various administrative units of ISI in running the different programs of ISEC. It will not be possible to run ISEC if I had not received the wholehearted support of each one of them. I am thankful to all. I congratulate the graduating trainees and wish you great success in your professional endeavors. I hope that the training received here will help you to build a successful career in the future. I wish you the best. Keep in touch. You are our brand ambassadors. Our doors are always open to you. Thank you for your attention. Next, I shall request Professor Shangamata Bandapadhyay to make some remarks.
Good afternoon. Professor Shugata Mukherjee, Chief Guest of today's event. Professor S.P. Mukherjee, presiding over the ISEC Convocation today. My colleague, Dr. Zafar Anis, Dr. Arindam Kaur, the trainees who have been with us for the past 10 years, all colleagues who have come today for the convocation of ISEC, and guests who are here, members of the press. It is indeed a great pleasure to be with you all here today on the occasion of the 75th convocation of the International Statistical Education Center. As the speakers before me already mentioned, ISEC was started in ISI by Professor Prashanta Chandra Mahalanobis, who founded ISI, who is considered the father of the statistical system in India. He was a physicist by training, got interested in statistics by a chance introduction to papers of applications of statistics while he was traveling back to India from England, which made him realize the importance of this discipline for national development and human welfare, which led him to establish this institute. But being the visionary that he was, in fact, what his vision was that along with Mahalanobis, the main architect of the VSTAT program that ISI runs, JPS Haldane, who had coordinated the VSTAT program when it was in MSTAT and VSTAT programs when it was initiated. If we look at those programs, those were way ahead of their times. Even today, their interdisciplinary nature shows the vision of the leaders of the Indian Statistical Institute. And with that vision, Mahalanobis set up ISEC in collaboration with the International Statistical Institute, because he realized that not only India will have to benefit, of course, from the application of statistics, but handholding is also necessary for when India and the Indian Statistical Institute, with its strength, it should also handhold others who may be a little behind, who may be requiring the training that ISI needs to offer or has to offer. And with that vision that ISI has to spread its wings, its presence, or its visibility even outside the country, ISEC was set up as an associate institute of the Indian Statistical Institute. And that is how, from 1950 onwards, ISI has been hosting ISEC within itself. It has become almost indistinguishable now. Although ISEC is a separate entity, it has its own board of directors. But over the last 75 years, every year, barring the COVID years, of course, but we have played host and we have welcomed the international participants for 10 months here. There have been very good experiences. There have been some not so good experiences from both ends, but it's a constant effort to learn how to adapt. And I hope you all had a fantastic time here. I must acknowledge at this time Professor Mukherjee's deep contribution, because his deep interest in ISEC affairs, constant prodding and pushing that he gives through his guidance and through his various points that he raises, that ISEC, I hope, will do much better, is already doing better and will do much better in the future. I must also acknowledge Professor Amita Pal, Professor Raman Bashri is also here, Professor Monoranjan Pal is also here, who have led ISEC in earlier years. Very recently, Professor Amita Pal was here, who really tried to turn it around, and Professor Dr. Zafar has taken over from there. I hope with the efforts of all, ISEC truly makes itself visible and useful to the world, what its mandate is, and we are able to see all the countries also benefiting. I hope whatever you've learned here, you will be able to use that knowledge fruitfully when you go back to your own countries, to your own organizations. And if at any point of time you have to revert to us for advice, for guidance, for help, or with some bright suggestions, please feel free to connect to ISEC, to Dr. Zafar, to Arindam here, because we would always like you to be associated with ISI, with ISEC forever. And as Dr. Zafar has already pointed out, you are our brand ambassadors. Please do spread the good word around that ISI and ISEC together, they would want to be as more useful to the world as possible. With those few words, thank you again for being here with us, and I wish all the trainees the very best. You do represent spectrum of countries, wide variety. We've come from many different countries. I think about 10 different countries are represented here. 13 different countries are represented here for 14 candidates. Usually we've had more number of trainees also, but because of certain constraints that was brought down a few years back. But we hope in future we can increase the size of the batches again, because 1714 trainees over about 74 years means that we've had much larger batches in the past. With those few words, thank you very much, and I once again wish you all the very best in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Monoranjan. Now it's my pleasant duty to introduce the convocation speaker. So Professor Majid is the first class undergraduate of Presidency College and a topper of the Calcutta University in economics, and he did his PhD from Rochester under the supervision of Professor Ronald Jones, completing in 1985. He is currently the first distinguished professor of Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. His previous positions include faculty position at Presidency College, Jadavpur University, Monash University, and later the Reserve Bank professorship at the Center for Social Studies in Social Sciences, Calcutta. He was the first Sukhatme Chair Professor at the Center for Economic Studies and Planning at JNU, and he was also a professor at the ISI. He was the Vice Chancellor of Calcutta University, Director of the CSSC, CSSC, which is the Center for Social Studies and Center for Studies in Social Sciences, and the Chairman of the West Bengal Council of Higher Education. He has held visiting professorship positions and delivered lectures at around 50 universities. I'm not going to name those universities. It's national level 50 names. He has published more than 250 papers in top national and international journals. He is a recipient of the Panchanan Chakravarti Memorial Award for contributions to teaching and research in West Bengal, the Mahalanobis Gold Medal of the Indian Economic Society, which is awarded the most outstanding Indian economist below the age of 45, something comparable to the Bhatnagar Award in the science disciplines. The VKRV Rao National Prize as a young social scientist, and the A.L. Naga Fellowship awarded to the most outstanding Indian economist between the age of 45 to 60 by the Indian Economic Society. And most importantly, he is the only one to have received all these awards. He was an invited speaker at many conferences. This is one part of his achievements. The other part is at least those who are in Bengal might be familiar with. He's a professional North Indian classical vocalist and has performed in all major concerts around the globe, including the famous Sanatak Manochan Sangeet Samaroh at Varanasi, which is the oldest Hindustani classical music festival in India, and at the Indian International Center on the occasion of the 50th years of India's independence. He was invited by the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house of Parliament. He has performed at Bombay and also at the invitation of the Indian High Commissioner in New York. He was awarded the State Drama Academy Award for the musical directions for a play in 1995. So, Professor Majid, now we look forward to your address. We look forward to your address now.
All right, thank you. Sorry for the long introduction because Mr. Anish told me to send a brief something, and then I had a few brief bios here and there, and I was trying to edit, and then I said, let me leave the editing to the people who are going to give me introduction, right? So, but I didn't have the idea that he didn't want to edit. So that's why you have been subjected to a very long introduction. But I am very pleased here to be here because I have association with ISI for a long time, and we have heard of this ISEC as a very interesting institute, which is training which is basically utilized in training up the officials and citizens of other countries by an institute, by resources who are excellent. So ISI has this great national and international reputation, and people who are trained from ISEC are also going to make differences in people's lives in their own countries. So what I'm going to do today in my convocation address is talk a bit about how public policy makers, public policy consultants, and public policy institutions in any country are exposed to certain interesting, simple but complex problems. Simple in the sense of interpretation, but complex in terms of handling. And this is important because I feel that not much is said in either discipline about these type of problems. In either discipline means both in statistics and in economics. We all know that most of the trainees, most of the students who will go back to their country would be involved in policy discussions, policy-related issues, policy-related operations in official capacities for different kinds of economic and social policies. And the fundamental and I would say most basic thing would be to handle official statistics. In fact, there is a unit in the ISI now which handles official statistics. But the interesting part of official statistics is the collection part. That is, you have to conduct large surveys for countries because essentially large sample surveys involving or encompassing a large area of engagement. And a very critical thing about this is that you have to interact with humans. You have to interact with people and they will have to report. They will have to answer to the questions that you ask, the questionnaires that you supply. And there is inherently a fundamental problem that it is difficult to assess whether they're reporting truthfully. Now, this is actually taught to those who are going to field work or going to the field for sample work and designing, after designing the samples, are executing that kind of a work. Now, the field workers and the statisticians involved are very well acquainted with the problem of actually when you go for this kind of revelations by people and you want to understand how much of it is actually not polluted in terms of information. Why this is very important? Naturally, because you gather official data, you gather data and you clean up the data, then that is used to make predictions for policy advice, to talk about causality relations of certain potential policies, which the government is going to use. So the backbone is the data set that you acquire. So if there is a problem there and it's not proper, it's kind of, I quote, unquote, polluted, then the entire process would be faulty. So the question is that, does it happen? Or if it does, what kind of implications it can have? Let us go back to a domain of operation which might look like very unrelated to all this. Let's go back to macroeconometricians or macroeconomists' preoccupations with large-scale predictions of consumption from income. Now, this is very well known for anyone who has gone through this kind of consumption function estimation from aggregate data, from macro data. You have consumption data, you have income data, you want to find out a relationship how income affects consumption. Robert Lucas Jr., very well-known Nobel laureate macroeconomist, wrote a classic paper in the 70s. It's called the Econometric Policy Evaluation, a Critique. And in fact, when I was contemplating to prepare something for this talk, that particular article came to my mind because I remember in 1984 or 85, I was invited by the Economic Research Unit to give a set of lectures to the students and the faculty on then a very hot topic called rational expectations, economics and econometrics. I gave 5-6 lectures and I was very fresh from my graduate school, where everybody then had to read this article. It's called the Econometric Policy Evaluation a Critique, and I actually presented that first time in my life at ISEC, way back, like I said, 40 years ago. Now, what is it? It tells you that the government announces a tax cut. And suppose you go back to your country and you are an advisor, the government says, I'm going to have a 10% income tax cut. What would be its impact on consumption? Now, you are a trained statistical expert from ISEC, so I want your advice on this. The thing is very simply, you are going to run a regression on consumption on income, a very simple regression, simple analysis. And you'd expect that part of the income would be used for consumption. So essentially, income would have, let's say, if the marginal propensity to consume is something like 75%, so you'd have a 75% response coefficient of, that's what you would estimate. And if you would say that, okay, it would be like, my guess is 3/4, and I will see whether this hypothesis, this null hypothesis is rejected or not rejected. And you run a regression, you find that it is rejected because it is 1. Well, however you estimate it, it is 1. The similar exercise, one of your friend who is actually trained in the same batch goes to his country and does exactly the same exercise, and the null hypothesis gets accepted. Each government is saying there is a 10% tax cut. Now, of course, as econometricians, as statisticians, we got to control for 200 things, but if we let that alone, the interesting part is why this is going to happen, because people who would actually consume their income, we have to internalize how these people think or how these people perceive this tax cut. If they believe that this tax cut is temporary, then the permanent income of these people, the lifetime income or income for several years, will not be that affected. Only this period's income will look greater, because next period, the government will go back on its promise and the tax rate will go up. So in that case, what they would do, they will actually, of course, consume a part of it. They would also save an extra part, because they want to distribute that saving as future consumption onto the other periods. But if they expect that this is for good, this is for infinity, this is for entire lifetime, then your overall lifetime income will increase much more. So there is no reason to save now. So you just consume more. So for that country where people's perception of a tax cut remains, is permanent, you will have your null hypothesis of beta equal to half or 3/4 getting rejected because it's equal to 1. And that's the permanent income hypothesis. That is, the parameter that you estimate is not only a function of many other things, but it is actually of human behavior. How does human behave? How does your sample unit behave and think and act? Now, this is what Lucas said without any kind of reference to micro experiments. It's not really the consumption figure, household consumption figure, or household investment figures, household saving figures, and so on. He's just talking about aggregate. But what he says, though, is that the parameters in regression coefficients are not really statistical in some sense only, but it contains elements of economic theory and human behavior. Now we come much later to a scenario of which I have actually the report I have already circulated via Mr. Anish to you. The soft copy of the report, which I did with a few of my colleagues for the Exim Bank in 22-23. It's called Misreporting Trade Statistics and Unaccounted for Capital Flows, Unaccounted Capital Flows. Now this, an interesting thing happens in 1990s in India. As you know, many of you know that Indian economy underwent a significant degree of reform in 1990s. And India sort of went into a path of liberalization and devaluation and the drastic reduction in tariffs and so on and so forth. So in 2000, I think one colleague of mine from ISI, one colleague from Kolkata University, and myself, we wrote a piece, Economic and Political Weekly. Now, why I did that? Because essentially the Reserve Bank of India was telling that India's exports have really, increased very fast with devaluation. As Indian rupee became less valuable, Indian exports became cheaper. So we were exporting at a very high rate. The interesting part is, if you look at the data of trade, international trade, it is a very interesting data because it is one of the very few data structure which you can verify from two independent sources. One is When you export to the United States, you have Indian data. When you go to US and want to study their data of what they receive from India. So basically, these two have some relationship during a period of time, because this is what they should be identical, because what I'm exporting to US, what US is receiving has to be identical. But there is a huge gap. In fact, in many countries, you observe this gap, not only in a particular period of time, but it is sustained. IMF says that this gap, so far as the accounting standards are concerned, it can be like, if there's a $1 transaction, that is 1.06, you can allow it to be different, it's a 0.06. There is a significant gap because there is misreporting. That is, there is misinvoicing of exports and imports by the exporters and importers. So in India's case, we figured out that actually what happened after 90s for a while, that since Indian rupee was devalued, so before it was overvalued, so what happened was the official exchange rate was very low. So if you want to exchange $1, probably you get 10 rupees. But when you allow devaluation, it became 20 rupees. So therefore, it increased the incentive of the exporters to truthfully report export earnings, because they could actually convert $1 into 20 rupees now. Previously, they would convert it from $1 into 10 rupees. So they will be reluctant to report all their earnings. So the data that RBI is collecting from the exporters and importers, the RBI has to be careful in terms of understanding why the exporters and importers may not report truthfully. If you don't internalize the regulation itself, which may impact your behavior, then you would not be able to guess what is truthful revelation. So this is important. Essentially, you see every numerical figure that the statistical figure tells you what it is about, that has a constituent element, which is human behavior. It is how the humans perceive that they will say this. Tax evasion is another example. People misreport their income, and therefore the tax revenue that you collect, that the government collects from people, can be very erroneous, can be full of errors. If you are not careful in assessing the incentive of these guys to misreport their earnings. So the official statistics that you collect will not give you the right picture. The other example, I would say that these examples now have been worked on quite I would say quite interestingly by authors. There is a series of papers on misreporting of trade statistics and balance of payments, but not systematically relating trade statistics misreport to unaccounted for capital flows. If I say that I have exported $1,000 to a US firm, and then I ring up that person and say that when you send me the vouchers and the bills and things like that, just send me $750. Keep $200 with you. We will settle it later. So I will show $750 here, and $200 I shall invest in an American bank. And this is not really something that I'm putting up. It's very openly known in most of the countries. In fact, World Bank had a big report on China at one time to tell that what is the average percentage of such misreporting. And India is not a very different country. If you look at the Indian data, you will find, and that's what this report is all about, that we have systematically studied the Indian case with its major trading partners and tried to find out the misreporting of trade data, as well as what is its implication on capital flows. So you can really think about, there are investments made in US that US do not, that India does not report. And there is a very interesting relationship between the Indian capital flow and the resources that move in and out of Mauritius. So all those things are being discussed in a very systematic manner. At least we tried to do it as much as we could with the given data, and there are some new methodologies attempted. But this is done just to show that we trust the official data, but the official data needs cleaning of different type. It's not really the data cleaning that you take away the outliers. The outliers should not be many. There should not be many zeros, and so on and so forth. There are statistical methods of data cleaning, but data cleaning has to be done also in terms of if there are very complex regulations, people are not going to say things truthfully because people are going to use that. That's going to distort their incentive to say yes or no depending on the circumstances, and you cannot deny that. There is one issue which is now very roaring in India regarding measure of unemployment. We have now PLFS, that is the Periodic Labor Force Survey, very interesting survey, the latest one that has come out, in which you see that poor people, rate of unemployment among those who have not attended colleges are much lower than those who have attended colleges and beyond. And in fact, if you talk about any country in the world, which is the typical developing country, you go to your country, you find out the data, you will find that relatively poor, the open unemployment rate among the relatively poor people is very low. But the open unemployment rate is higher is the level of education. Now, this is what is coming out in the official survey. From that survey, you have to infer whether there is a significant unemployment rate. Yes, but why? And there is a very interesting story about India. And this story comes from the fact that, or among the youth, largely among the youth in India, largely among the youth almost everywhere, may not be in the developed world, I know little about them, but this youth and unemployment essentially talk about indignity of labor. That is, if you come from a more prosperous family, then you are very choosy about the work that you will do. And India, this happens in terms of caste differences, the social status, the occupational prestige, all kinds of things, and how people perceive. You have gone to an engineering college, and you are expecting, let's say, 80,000 rupees per month as salary. Now, if that salary is offered by a big corporation, you go there. If that salary is offered, or close salary is offered by an MSME, by a firm you have never heard of, then you take 6 months to decide whether you will go. We had a significant survey in Bangalore area, which is an area where that both you have a very skilled labor force as well as different types of farms and so on. MSME entrepreneurs are telling us that anybody who has gone to IIT, now in India now there are many IITs. When we were students, there were only 4, but now I do not know how many. But anyway, there are many IITs, and they said that they graduate from there, and if you want to hire them, you try to pay them good salary, they would not come to these companies. They would rather wait. They would rather wait for jobs. So they would actually pick up some, skilled workers from ITI, which is the lower grade training institutes, and will train them up. Eventually that will be good for them. There are umpteen number of examples that you don't get plumber and electricians in big cities in India. It's very costly. But you have many engineering undergrads who are unemployed. The question comes is that there are problems of when people say we did a pilot survey in some areas of Calcutta where we talked about why you are not in a job to someone and educated this thing. So first they will say that there is no job. Then you start talking to them and say that why? That means there is no job that he desires to have. So there is a difference. Now for very poor, that's not an option. If you come from a very poor family, any job that you get, you will accept. So in general, there is a very interesting implication of this is that if you cannot afford to wait for a better job, then it is most likely that you will find a job and you will get employed. Suppose that is the situation. It's not a very bad situation because you can get a job and get employed. And more prosperous you will be, the waiting period will start rising. And now, during that waiting period, the field workers go there to actually, survey the unemployed, do this employment survey. And they don't actually go and talk to these people, they don't mix with them, and they'll understand that why he's not in a job. There might be different reasons. You are an engineer. In India, this reason is very important. You are you are a mechanical engineer, but the type of training that you have received from the institution that you have gone is not good enough for you to get an employment in a good organization. So then there is skill mismatch. So basically, whenever you talk about an employment survey, you have to be very careful in countries like ours, because there are many things that we think about. Our psychological pattern, how do we respond to a question? That depends on lots of things. So are we preparing questionnaire according to that? So this is another issue that I think is very important. Very real life problem. And the last two that I shall mention is first to do with our fascination with artificial intelligence and large data set, this big data analytics that we talk about. I'm not going to talk a lot about that because I think ISI has many people who know much better about big data. I know very little about big data, but I know that what big data is unable is big data system or big data resolution will not serve the purpose. The most important purpose for economic and social policies and for statisticians and economists, it is the idea of the mechanism by which you look at the observation and the causal relation. Essentially, you have large amount of data and you can find a pattern, you can read the pattern, you can actually analyze the pattern, but the pattern tells you, sometimes this mechanism is absent. You say that Y is caused by X, but this question why is missing. And if you cannot explain why, then it is not helping the government in terms of policy making. Because if you cannot explain why, then it can actually be very different in some other circumstances. So the main point that one wants to be careful is that, yes, with more data, I can predict better, I can forecast better. But forecasting is not the end of what we are trying to achieve. It is about that if forecasting tells us that something disastrous is going to happen very nicely, that, whatever you do, some disastrous outcome is going to happen. The whole question is that why this disaster is happening. Now, as long as or so long as the AI analytics resolution will not be able to answer this question why, it is a problem. Of course, in medical science and every other sphere, what you observe is that, we really cannot talk about, we can only talk about the large experiments not done, simultaneously in 10 different places, but you can take those experiments together if the methodologies are the same, look at the implications of a particular drug, how it has affected, and so on and so forth. But in many occasions, what I feel that the analysis just stops before explaining the mechanism of why certain factors are affecting certain other factors. And that is not good. The last part, which is I'm going to focus on, is a bit about the very popular methodology of statistical experiments is randomized controlled trials. Apart from the fact that these are really small sample experiments, very intense experiment, as some of you know what is randomized controlled trials. But the one thing that you have to be very careful about, again, human actions, human incentive and things like that. For example, I was watching a television a television feature regarding, some group of economists and statisticians are talking about giving universal income to a group of villagers, and they are saying that if you give that to them, there is no doubt that that there is they are not doubtful that that won't be used very efficiently, because these guys will use them efficiently. So it is not that it's a one-shot help and then it just vanishes because people just consume. And so that is the story, and some of them have become successful, and the villages are successful, and so on. I'm not going to give specifics of the example because it's a criticism of that. Then I find, because I was following up the documentary, then I find that some of the leaders of this experiment, after this experiment, during this experiment, when they have been given this, there's a control where a control group where they have not received anything. There is a treatment group where people have received something, and some of these experimentalists are, it's a village in South Chব্বিশ Pargona. They are having, some sort of, we call it muri tele bhaja. So it's muri means, as you know, you must have stayed in Calcutta by now. It's puffed rice and some fried eggplant or onion and things like that, and potatoes. And the lead experiments are explaining to them, look, if you become a great entrepreneur, then this would happen. If you do this, if you don't consume away this, you really can do it. See, they're distorting the experimental outcome. When the experiment is going on, they should stay at least 100 miles away from that place. They should not come and at that time, they are getting very popular, and people are saying, look, the great economists are doing this. It's very bad, because essentially what you are doing is mixing up this, the experimental design is flawed. Once this experiment is in place, actually you shut down, your door, shut up your door, and you stay inside. Don't go to the subjects and start explaining how they can do better. These certain things must be very important, and when you go back and start engaging yourself in real life policy activities, or helping the government, or writing something which that is important for changing lives of the people, you have to think about human behavior, how humans behave, because ultimately the official data, the primary data, as we call it, in many cases are actually generated through questionnaires, questions and answers given by subjects. That is the sample subjects. So to that extent, it is statistics, economics, sociology, or whatever. But at the foundational level, there has to be something which tells you that, are there sufficient incentives on the part of the subjects that they are going to say something which is not right, not correct, not useful. So this is what I think is an important issue, and there are sporadic attempts now to address this problem, and I hope that some of you would look into this in more detail, and when the complexities would be even more challenging, and then, of course, you realize that how important for you, how important was it for you to be trained at the ISEC Center and ISEC. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Majid, for your address. Lots of food for thoughts for the trainees here. Now we come to one of the most important part of the function, the award of diplomas.
For the 75th term, regular course formerly called Statistical Theory and Application, this year we have 14 trainees from 13 countries. Mr. Iqbal Kobir.
I think it's a
Mr. Iqbal Kobir from Bangladesh. Miss G. Kuru. Miss G. Kuru from Botswana. Mr. M. Celestine from Burundi. Mr. Yepi Odilon from Cote d'Ivoire.
Stay here.
Mr. Aladi Asamoy from Cote d'Ivoire. Mr. Kasongo Rigi from Democratic Republic of Congo. Mr. Desta Himade from Ethiopia. Miss Metelita Drodro from Fiji.
Congratulations. I hope you had a good time.
Mr. Lamin Ferreira from Gambia.
Congratulations.
Miss Elizabeth Mbata from Kenya. Mr. Henderson Chiana from Malawi. Mr. Abdul Rashid from Niger. Miss Mi Sisi Sen from Republic of the Union of Myanmar.
Our trainees were active not only in academics, but also they took part in the annual sports which is organized by the ISEC club. So we'll give out the prizes here, and I would request the chief guest to hand some of them and the chairman.
For the 70th annual athletic sport, organizer ISEC Club 2023-24. For the event, kicking the football into the net, Mr. Lamin Ferreira, first position. Kicking the football into the net, second position, Mr. Abdul Rashid. Hitting the target with cricket ball, second position, Mr. Desta Hemade. Balance race, spoon and marble, first position, Miss Mi Sisi Sen. Balance race, spoon and marble, third position, Miss Elizabeth Embata. Now I request our chairman, Professor S. P. Mukherjee, to deliver the prizes. Kicking the football, Mr. Lemon Fadera, third place. Middle and third, second position, Miss Me C.C. Sen. Breaking the jar, third position, Miss Elizabeth Embata. That's all.
Now Dr. Kaur will deliver the vote of thanks.
It is my proud privilege to propose a vote of thanks. Today my words are not enough to express the gratitude. On behalf of ISEC, I would like to thank our chief guest, Dr. Subhadra Mardi, who graced us with his thought-provoking address. I would like to thank our chairman, Professor S. P. Mukherjee, for his leadership and valuable suggestions throughout the year. I would like to thank the director, ISI, for awarding the diplomas and for a constant support to the ISEC program. I also like to thank all other dignitaries on the dais who have witnessed today's program as a memorable and successful event. Special thanks are due to Ministry of External Affairs, who has supported most of our training through scholarship of the ITEC program. The officials of the National Statistical System Training Academy, Central Statistical Office, and the National Sample Survey Office, who had made contribution to running our program as in every year, and they deserve our thanks. I thank all the officials of the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, under whose banner the ISEC program is run. Internally, I would like to thank the following officers of ISI: Estate Office, Engineering Unit, Electric Maintenance Unit, Audiovisual Unit, Retro and Photography Unit, Office of the Chief Executive, Director's Office, Guest House, Accounts Department, ISEC Office and Hostel, Transport Unit, Medical Welfare Unit, Public Relation Unit, Security Office, the Press, Computer Statistical Service Center, ISI Club, ISI Worker Organization, Dean's Office, and the support staff of Commander Division. My sincere thanks are due to all our ISI faculty staff who always stand by us, guide us, lead us, and help us in every aspect. Last but not the least, I thank all the trainees for showing their interest in the ISEC program.
Now declare this convocation closed.
Please stand up for the national anthem. Yeah, let's have the national anthem first, and then we'll have it.
शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे
Thank you. So as per request, we'll have some group photographs here, and there's some tea outside for you. So
Please, if the trainees can come. দাঁড়িয়ে তো নাকি আমরা বসে যাই?
আপনারা বসেন।
বসবো।
অর্জুন অর্জুন এদিকে হ্যাঁ ছবি জানলে ভালো দেখা যাচ্ছে তোমার পাশে বের করো Thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you. There's tea outside.
Right.